Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we're going to talk a little bit in depth about the contraband decision and a way that you can see that period of time and experience some living history out at Fort Monroe. My guests are Darcy Nelson from the Casemate Museum and Aaron Firth from the National Park Service. Welcome.
Good morning.
You know, the contraband decision is such a key part of local history, but also such a key part of national history. And I think some people don't understand it entirely. So I'm going to start right off the bat with what the heck is the contraband decision? Can you tell us kind of quickly, Darcy, what that means?
Sure, that refers to a decision that occurred at Fort Monroe 154 years ago this May, when 3 enslaved men who were working for the Confederate Army found their way to Fort Monroe, which was still held by the Union at the outbreak of the Civil War and throughout the Civil War, and sought sanctuary there. They didn't know what they would find, but they were in fact given that sanctuary, and that had a deep impact on the
And I'll say it was a rogue move. I mean, it was not a Union presidential sanctioned thing. And General Butler, in fact, it probably had less to do with freedom and more to do with, I'm not going to return these escaped slaves so they can build battlements to be used against me. And it didn't recognize them as free at all. In fact, he used the legal argument that they were property. And if I have your property in war, I don't have to return it. So it had the effect eventually of helping to free people, and many scholars believe it led to the Emancipation Proclamation. But it was this early rogue practical step to help the Union, basically. But boy, what did it trigger?
It's a very fascinating instance as well. It's not the first time he'd had that experience come to him of persons seeking their freedom, and he had a similar experience a few weeks earlier up in Maryland, and due to the nature of that instance, he had made a different decision. But being here in the Commonwealth on his second day as the commander of the post, if you can imagine the timing of that as well, it was such a sort of fence post decision, playing both sides of the issue while recognizing as a Massachusetts born lawyer.
Right. He knew the legal arguments.
He knew the legal arguments, but he was also looking at them as men, not property, but in the structuring of that decision, playing what the Commonwealth of Virginia citizens were saying with their Articles of Secession, that they are treating them as such, and playing both sides of the same coin to come to that decision.
Sure, and I'm sure he realized, you know, here's Fort Monroe, you've got the fort and you've got protection to some extent, but you're the only point in Virginia that is held by the Union. And all around you is the Confederates, and so probably wanted some reinforcements, probably needed those people to escape and to help out. And he did eventually employ many of the men, and some of the, I think, women too.
Yeah, the decision being such a landmark decision, that first step towards emancipation and freedom for thousands and millions of persons in the country, was a huge first step. And by the weekend, tens of people and thousands of people in a very short period of time are flocking towards freedom with the Union Army wherever it is, and at Fort Monroe.
Right, right. Mm-hmm. Fort Monroe really kind of started the trickle, and then it grew so big that the fort couldn't hold everybody, and by then the Confederacy had burned Hampton, so there was lots of empty ground for people to pitch their tents on, and the great contraband camps began to form. And what's interesting to me is, here's this term contraband, which really means property, but, well, captured in war, and yet they've embraced the term. There are families here in Hampton today and throughout the nation that are contraband descendants, and 3 of our churches are contraband churches, and it's such a part of the local history. I forget that it is national history too. I mean, it ranks right up. You came from Kansas, from the Brown v. Board of Education, and it is that kind of decision, but it's not as well known, is it?
And that's something that we're certainly striving to make more well known. And I think you brought up a great point about it, is those historical actors, they didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know what the implications were going to be. And so with some of the commemorative events that we're doing, we really want to bring that to life for people in terms of, putting themselves in that perspective and understanding the moment.
So let's talk about those events then, because May is the anniversary. You said it's going to be which anniversary?
154th.
154th. And you guys have two very special tours planned, 2 days and tours. Tell us about that.
So we actually have 3 events this year planned in May. On the 16th and the 23rd of May, there will be living history tours at 11 and 2, 2 tours on each of those dates, going through part of that story and celebrating and commemorating the events and sort of the outcomes of how so many people found freedom, and then how they were able to empower themselves to take agency to help further the cause of freedom and the war effort as well by joining the services, or what the families might also be doing in terms of camp life and other support for the military and the effort itself as well. So those will happen at 11 and 2 on the 16th and the 23rd. On the 22nd, a Friday, we're planning a freedom concert. That will be a choral concert that'll be taking place at Fort Monroe as well, in Continental Park where the bandstand is.
Oh, nice.
The tours themselves will start at Cannon Park just before you get to Continental Park as you come in to the base. So those are the 2 events that are preceding the sort of foundation event of what is now the Contraband Commemoration Event Series, is the commemoration ceremony. Something that was a very strong, felt feeling of Jerry Hollins and the Contraband Historical Society and many other important members of the community to keep the story and the significance of the first 3 freedom seekers, Frank Baker, James Townsend, and Shepard Mallory, and their efforts to find freedom at Fort Monroe. And so that is something that we work very seriously with the Contraband Historical Society and many other partners to create this series, including City Hampton Parks and Recs and many other organizations to make this happen. So the ceremony will take place on May 24th at 7:30 in Cannon Park and will end with a candlelight vigil as well.
That's so nice. Well, and that's why I was like, well, can't you just offer this every week? And you guys were saying, no, there's this whole cast of characters. So instead of a ranger-led walk, not that those aren't wonderful, but you guys are going to have really actors showing what the historical figures that we know did, and then maybe also portraying people of the time, or sort of
everyday
compilation.
people as well.
History doesn't do so well with everyday people. We're very good at telling you where the generals were and what the presidents did, but sometimes the how people lived part doesn't come out as much. So what will this look like?
Well, the living history tours, I think, are going to be really exciting, really moving. The visitor, how did you put this the other day? The visitor is actually becomes sort of part of the history.
Yeah, the tour attendants on the tour that we're having will take the role of an arriving freedom seeker coming to join the contraband camps themselves. So they are taking on a portrayal of themselves. So as you come in,
essentially you are presenting yourself to not General Butler probably, but to someone at Fort Monroe and saying...
Eventually you will have audience with Major General Butler.
Cool.
Yeah, so visitors will get to interact with the general, with contraband women, with youth who were enlisting in the Union Navy. So just a real mix of people, and I think that'll really help the visitor engage with what was happening at the time, what their options would have been if they were at Fort Monroe at the time, depending on who they were.
Right.
And really significant and interesting persons of history, such as Robert Smalls, who was a South Carolinian who stole himself away in very much the same way Frederick Douglass did, and captured a boat and went on to a lot of very impressive service to the nation as well. So it may not be as widely known as others. So you're getting in big names like Major General Benjamin Butler, who many know, who studied the war, but the more average day folk of the time and some of those significant persons that have perhaps not gotten the same attention.
Well, you know, of course, by the time you as the visitor are coming through, you're not the first three. You have a reasonable expectation of what is going to happen. But for those first three gentlemen, you know, I would imagine that they believed they had some slight chance, but they had to feel like either they might not survive the trip rowing across, you know, across Hampton roads. They might get caught or shot before they got there. And they had to very likely think, I'm a runaway slave. I'm going to be returned. That is what happens. This is such a risky, you know, my chances of survival here are not good. Yet I'm willing to make this incredible risky journey.
Well, it's the universal story of the desire for freedom that many people across the world, even to today, still have, and it's a great motivator to, you know, have that and get it whatever way you can.
So, yeah. So what happened to those three? Do you have, does the history, you know, I hear of the journey, but what happened to them after that?
That's a great question. Some of the evidence is there, but not nearly as much as we might like. So we're not always completely certain about the outcome of their individual histories.
Research remains to be done, but I think increasing awareness and interest in the topic will just propel that research.
Okay. So now you guys are able to do this living history on a level that relates to old people my age, younger people, and even kids, because, I mean, who can't understand that yearning for freedom? And you have a book here that you use.
Absolutely. So on those two Saturdays, the 16th and the 23rd, when the Living History Tours will be taking place, we will also be offering activities for kids and families at the entrance to the Casemate Museum. And those activities are designed to extend the Living History Tour so that the visitor can gain a deeper understanding of either what they're about to see on the tour or what they have just seen on the tour. And for example, one of those that actually the Hampton History Museum is coming out and helping us with is an interactive theater activity based on Susan Van Heck and London Ladd's book, Under the Freedom Tree, and that's what we have here with us today. And that is a story. You can see the three men pictured on the front in those beautiful illustrations. And it basically tells the contraband story and the effects it had on our community and the nation afterwards. The freedom tree that's noted in the title is the Emancipation Oak, referring to the Emancipation Oak, which is probably over 300 years old and is on what is Hampton University's campus today. So in addition to that, we'll have...
and people can go see that. You know, it's open. You just kind of drive right up. There's a little bit of a fence around it so you don't destroy anything.
It's there.
After you leave Fort Monroe and after you've been through the tour and the exhibits, geez, please drive by and stand there, because you know, whether you believe there's, like, you know, things that are still around, it'll help you feel like I had shivers still when I go visit
it's amazing.
it, you know?
And last year we actually printed out some directions on how to get there from Fort Monroe. So maybe we'll bring those back this year.
That sounds great. Okay, do you guys have anything to add before we close?
Well, we would certainly like the opportunity to invite those of the public that are looking for something to do on a couple Saturdays and Friday evening in May. We'd also like to invite the members of the public who might feel strongly to reach out to us if they have a personal connection or story that can help us tell the story in a more wider audience in a way, or would like to engage. We'd certainly welcome that opportunity as well.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. This is
Thank
a
you.
great opportunity for the community, and I hope people will come into town and visit this, because maybe we can do it more often, but for now we're very focused on May and really learning how to learn from what happened there and tell that story to a wider audience. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I hope to see you in May to learn more about the contraband decision and then the experience and what it led to and how it changed lives in Hampton and in the country. Thanks for watching.